Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody, the best part of your day when it comes to talking about the sports world. We welcome you inside the studio here live on Brew Sports. We've already had a full slate of exciting content for you today, but your day is not over yet because you still got to go through Happy Hour, and there's even one more show after this as well, too. As soon as we're off the air here on Happy Hour, you're going to get the premiere of Double Dribble with Mitch Vomhoff and Jimmy Carlton covering all things pro basketball. It's going to be a great time. You're not going to want to miss them. Jimmy and Mitch, a bunch of characters. That is definitely going to be something you're going to definitely want to keep an eye on to go into your weekend. But we welcome you inside the studio here for Happy Hour. We don't have any Tika Griesbach today, but we've got the next best thing. We've got Ryan Thies. Ryan, one of the co-hosts of College Road Trip with Barry Nelson on Wednesday nights. Thanks for sitting in today, Ryan. How are you doing?
No problem. Pretty good. Just trying to get that Sixth Man of the Year award.
Sixth Man of the Year goes to Ryan Thies. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right away. I'll just give you the round of applause. As it is tradition on all Brew Sports shows, you have to identify what you're drinking for us. Since you got to tell us about the glass, tell us about the drink in hand as well.
First, I'll start with the drink. We got a nice Leinenkugel's Grapefruit Shandy, one of my favorites, especially into the summertime. It is March. It isn't quite warmed up yet here in Milwaukee, but we're almost there. It's all about the idea of the warm coming. That's why I got the Grapefruit Shandy. And this glass I got at a Marquette game. It's a little throwback pint series. This is from 1977, their uniform they wore that year. They're celebrating 100 years of basketball. Great time. Each home game, they give away a pint glass, and there's another one tomorrow, so I will add to my collection.
I did not realize that Marquette did that. And that's through a sponsorship with, was that through Coors Light? Is that who
Coors Light is the sponsor.
Interesting. I didn't even realize that Marquette gave away. I guess I should probably go to a Marquette basketball game and get a free glass.
You got to start there. You got to go to the game first.
That's the first thing. If you can if you actually go to the game and tolerate Marquette Golden Eagles basketball, then. But no, they're doing fairly well. We'll talk about them a little bit later on the show, of course, as we get into our bracketology. I am going a little rogue. I know it's Happy Hour. Most people are excited for the weekend. They're drinking. They're cold brews. I'm trying to stay awake, so I'm having some coffee. I'm sorry, everyone's probably going to be like, boo, enjoy the weekend. I will later, okay? I have to do this and got some other stuff to take care of today, so I'm trying to stay awake, not trying to fall asleep. I had a beer during the halftime show with Tanner Burke earlier, so I had an NFL Stein. It was quite the experience, to say the least.
Had the lid and everything.
I did. That was the tricky part, too. We were talking about it after the show. People were like, it looked a little awkward. I'm like, well, they're Steins. Like, they're weird. You got to, flick it up, and then you got to, maneuver it to grab it. It's not like a pint where you can just, drink and go. So hopefully our Brew Sports pint glasses get here via Pony Express, hopefully fairly soon, and then I can spot that and be like, hey, Brew Sports, like it, love it. Well, we've got a big show in store for everybody today. We're going to be joined in our second segment in probably about 6 to 7 minutes by one of our football correspondents, Kyle Tait. You probably just heard Kyle on the NFL show Pick 6. Usually you can see that on Tuesday mornings from 9 to 10 Central, but special edition of it, of course, as we are kicking off our Brew Sports. So Kyle's going to be here with us as well to chat about things that are taking place in the NFL, the Combine. He's also down in Atlanta as well, too, so I'm sure we'll have to ask how the city of Atlanta is doing post-Super Bowl loss as well, too. So a lot of good things to get to. But first, before we do all of that, we start every show with our What's on Tap segment, Ryan. And we talk about some of the more interesting or exciting or big news things in the sports world. Do we want to start funny or do we want to start serious, Ryan? What kind of a mood are you in?
Let's go serious first. Always end on a funny note.
That makes makes total sense to me. So the serious note is for Boston Red Sox fans. David Price finding out today that we thought it was going to be a long-term injury with his elbow. He's only going to be out, it sounds like 7 to 10 days, barring some extra testing, basically. So for whatever issues were going to be surrounding the Boston Red Sox ace, apparently now they're saying he's going to be really reevaluated again, too, but just needs to get more rest and just kind of focus in more so on what he's got taking place now, which I think is a huge sigh of relief if you're a Red Sox fan.
If you felt a breeze anywhere outside today, that is a collective sigh of relief from the entire city of Boston, knowing that their ace is going to be with them, or at least as of now, they know that they're going to be with them through the regular season. And now, always with David Price's history, playoffs are always up in the air, but you got to make the playoffs first, and he is the centerpiece for that Boston Red Sox team.
Well, and the Red Sox, too, I feel like have kind of fallen from glory the last couple of years. I mean, the Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz era for a while, there was the big thing. I mean, they finally broke the curse. They won the World Series. It's been over a decade now, hasn't it been, since they won the World Series?
No, they won 2013, and
That's
they
right.
won
I
in
always forget about that one
2007
because
as well.
2007 was the big one.
They've won 2 more since 2004, yeah.
That's right, and I feel like those were kind of almost overshadowed after breaking that curse. Because I mean,
a little bit, yeah.
Because once you win,
you're still winning the World Series.
you are,
a
of
huge
course.
deal.
But I mean, once you win that big game and like that monumental, like so, if the Cubs win again next year, they win in 2 years, people will be like,
it won't be as big.
It's not.
It won't be as big.
You're absolutely right.
But the Red Sox do have great young talent coming up. They got Mookie Betts, who had that great hitting streak last season. Andrew Benintendi coming up. Great outfield core for the Red Sox this season. If Price can stay healthy, they will definitely contend in kind of a weaker AL East this season.
That's true. The Yankees were definitely a shell of themselves in years past. I feel like this last year they didn't even make the playoffs, if I'm correct about that. That was always the one thing. I'm not a big baseball fan. I keep an eye on the Brewers a little bit because we're here in Milwaukee, but I also generally just keep an eye on like the Red Sox and the Yankees because those are your marquee teams, and it's kind of like the Patriots or the Cavaliers or the Warriors and the Spurs and other sports as well too, or the Blackhawks in hockey. You always just keep a general ear out for how like the supposed really good teams are doing. And when people were saying, yeah, Yankees aren't going to make the playoffs, I'm like, good Lord. I'm like, what's going on in New York?
Yeah,
Something must be.
It's been a bet. They haven't won since 2012, if I remember off the top of my head.
Been that long? My gosh.
Yeah, they got Andrew Chapman back this year. Got
true.
a big acquisition, a prospect, Clint Frazier. He's been high on many prospect boards. It's going to be great for the Yankees these next couple of years. But I think they got the Orioles to worry about too in that AL East.
The Orioles were kind of that quiet, exciting team last year on that East Coast.
Well, any team not named the Red Sox and Yankees are the quiet team in the AL East because of how big the Red Sox and the Yankees are.
You're absolutely right about that. Well, we definitely are going to be curious to see what baseball has to offer us this season. Of course, still a lot of weeks away from opening day, but spring training is back. Everybody can breathe as a whole, aside from Red Sox fans, that baseball is back. And I was talking about this with Tanner earlier on the morning show, or on the halftime show during lunchtime, about the length of the baseball seasons and how the off season seems like it just takes forever to get through. But I mean, baseball is one of those things. You play so many games, you almost need that longer extended break, because I feel like if you were to have almost a year-long season, or 3/4 of the year basically just tied up, it's like, okay, guys, like let's take a break here. It's a bit too much, I feel like, at that point.
Yeah, it's a very tiring season, but baseball is not a big contact sport like, say, football or hockey. So they're able to do it, and that's what makes it more fun, I think. What teams can persevere through the 162 game schedule? Who can stay healthy? Who can maintain the hot streaks? Everyone has their hot and cold streaks throughout the year, and that just makes it that much more interesting. Who can maintain them more?
You're absolutely right about that. Well, sometimes, Ryan, when people get hot, they get road rage, and people just start to freak out. They yell at drivers. Do you get road rage?
Oh, for sure.
Really?
We have a road rage segment on the
That's
the
right. Well, I wasn't sure. I mean, because
yeah.
sometimes things are fabricated to make it seem more exciting than it actually is. But you seem like such a calm guy. I don't see you getting fired up by somebody cutting you off.
You know, we should just keep it that way, and you won't have to be in the passenger seat while
Ryan's
I'm driving.
Like, I promise I'm a nice guy.
And we'll keep it that way. You'll keep thinking I'm a nice guy. That's what I want. I want you to keep thinking that. But when I get behind the wheel, it's all fair game.
Well, sometimes news reporters try to look for stories that they think will be interesting. And there was one reporter that did an interview recently with somebody that he thought would maybe know a thing or two about road rage. However, as he was interviewing this person, he suddenly realized what was going on. We've got the video for you. Take a look and draw your own conclusions from that.
Road rage, huh?
Yeah. So, have you ever had anyone go road rage on you?
I have. It's been a long time, but yeah, I definitely had somebody go road rage on me.
What happened? They point a gun at you?
Oh, no. It didn't get to that level. But kind of slammed their brakes in front of me, and I was able to kind of maneuver and get around them. And it took everything in me not to flip them the bird, but, I kind of gave them a little stare as I passed by.
But, I mean, you worried about someone pulling out a gun on you?
Yeah, you definitely got to be aware of that, because you never know what to expect with people these days, especially with road rage. It's unfortunate that people would go to that extent to pull out a weapon or something. I think I recall seeing something in the news the other day about an 8-year-old girl who passed.
The woman that got murdered last night.
Yeah,
that's why we're doing the story.
Yeah, man, it's so unfortunate. That's why I tell my wife and my brothers and sisters, when you're driving around, to try to avoid any type of road rage. You know, you see anyone that's, kind of, heckling you on the road, just go around them and, just let them win. Your life is too short to be on the highway, swerving in front of people or speeding up, trying to catch up to people. You never know how they will react to it.
Absolutely. All right, your name?
Adrian Peterson.
Wait a minute. You're not.
Yeah.
So kind of a funny situation there, honestly. But how do you not realize you're talking to one of the greatest football players of all time, basically? Like that. I get it, though. I was in this situation about a year ago. I was, for those that know the former Detroit Piston basketball player, Ben Wallace, I was calling a basketball game at the gym that he owns, actually, down in Richmond, Virginia. And I walked into the gym and didn't really put two and two together. I walked in, acknowledged that I was looking at Ben Wallace, but my brain was like, yeah, that's Ben Wallace, cool, whatever, keep walking. And I kept walking, and then my brain finally was like, wait a minute, like that is one of the greatest NBA players in recent history, Ben Wallace. And I finally stopped. I'm like, holy cow. And I went and actually talked to him, and then everything kind of convened from there. But we see these players, we see these famous people all the time when you on TV or in the news, but when you actually see them in person, like sometimes you're like, am I really? Like, you look at the person, like, can I touch you? Like, are you real?
It's amazing to think that athletes are people, too. And
what?
that was probably a great time for Adrian Peterson to be not recognized for once, to be talked to as a regular just citizen of Texas, not some superstar running back that, oh, can I get your autograph? No, like, I want your honest opinion, what you think of road rage.
Exactly. It's just kind of funny how that all worked out, honestly. I just thought that was a bit ironic, honestly. But so one more final thing we do here in the beginning of the show that we're going to do here, part of our What's on Tap before we bring in Kyle Tait, has to do with something that UCF is doing. Now, you went to college in Kansas. I went to college here in Wisconsin. Did your college campus do anything fun, have anything fun that students could partake in, or just that was your claim to fame? Like, yeah, you got to come to our school because we've got this.
We did have the nicest student activity center and weight room and basketball gym kind of thing.
So you had something there.
It was all jam-packed in one. It was built in 2008, which is newest for our conference at least. We're a real small NAIA school, so we don't have anything very intricate, but it was still nice. It brought some interest. I think part of it was the reason why I was swayed over to Kansas West. I mean, it was because of the student activity center, how nice it was. The weight room wasn't a garbage place that smelt bad, which was a plus, but some other schools took note of it and said, hey, this is kind of nice.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Well, the reason I ask, the school that I went to did not, unfortunately, because they are in the same general vicinity of where we are right now. I will keep my mouth quiet in terms of the name of the school. But the University of Central Florida, Ryan, if you haven't heard, is putting in a lazy river for the student-athlete village, which that second half of that sentence is not a stutter. The student-athlete village. Kind of like the Olympic village for all the athletes that go. They have a student-athlete village, and they are putting in a lazy river throughout the entire thing. That's going to cost them millions of dollars to do.
$25 million to be exact.
Are you kidding? Why?
Well, here's my counterpoint. You think it's crazy. You think, oh, why would they waste money on this? Why would they do this only for the student athletes?
Right.
What is a huge topic between college athletes, especially football players, and the NCAA?
Money.
Trying to get paid.
Yeah, trying to get paid.
If you can't pay them in monetary value,
bribe them.
Why don't you pay them in a lazy river? That's one way to kind of show the gratitude that
I just can't remember.
Without
honestly.
UCF football and Blake Bortles a couple years ago, I don't think they have as a big fan base as they do now.
So how do you recruit
revenue?
Exactly.
And I think it's a great tool for them, and this is kind of the world that we live in now. You got to have the big fancy stuff. That's why Oregon was good at football for
the Nike deal, all of
that. Because college kids like really big, obnoxious things that really shouldn't be there.
True.
But if you're not going to give them a paycheck, then use that money that could be spent on that
You're absolutely
on something nice for the kids.
True. Going to Facebook here briefly before we bring in Kyle Tait. David says, Bax, check the floor. I think you just dropped a name there. Yes, I did. I did the whole Ben Wallace name drop. Corey says, Baxter, I remember when you asked Tito Jackson what his name was at the hashtag A Billion Lives red carpet premiere in Hollywood. The only reason I did that, I knew very well who he was, Corey, thank you very much, is because we were required to do that for editing for purposes for later on. So just going to throw that out there. It was hard to miss. He's the best looking guy on the carpet. Be like, of course, that's Tito Jackson. Aaron said his college had root beer keggers. James said, I wouldn't have known. Everyone knows the name, but not everyone knows the face. Same goes for musicians as well. That makes sense to me, I guess. Yeah. One gentleman that we certainly know the name and the face of is Kyle Tait, one of our pro football correspondents here on Brews Sports. He also works for 92.9 The Game down in the beautiful city of Atlanta, Georgia, and he joins us on the program now. Kyle, welcome to Happy Hour, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, guys. How are you?
Doing well. Do you have any relatable experiences like this, Kyle? We've been talking about seeing celebrities for the first time and not fully recognizing or remember. And I know you've worked in the news business as well, too, but have you ever had those kind of like, wait a minute, I'm talking to who right now?
When I was a kid, I was walking through the Atlanta airport, and I walked right by this really tall guy with super skinny, like almost chicken legs. In fact, my older brother, he made fun of him because he had super skinny legs. And it was Dikembe Mutombo. We had no idea it was Dikembe Mutombo.
Oh.
And so my dad says, I was probably 6 or 7 years old. There's no reason why I would know who Dikembe Mutombo was at the time. Yeah. And so he says, do you guys know who that was? And we had just gotten through the security line. And we said, no, but he had really, really skinny legs. And he was like, yeah, he plays for the Hawks. That's Dikembe Mutombo. So now, of course, I think of him as the no guy on his commercials. But back then, he was just the random, really tall guy in the airport.
That's too funny. Yeah, sometimes you just have no idea who you're going to see or run into. I mean, like Ryan said, athletes are people too, and people forget about that sometimes. Right. All right, Kyle, well, we brought you on to talk a little bit about the NFL right now. We know that, of course, the NFL Scouting Combine is taking place. Free agency, of course, is also a hot topic. We were talking about him a little bit earlier in the show as well, too, for a different reason, because he got interviewed on TV for Road Rage. But for Adrian Peterson, he's a big, hot name right now. Do you have any ideas where a guy like Adrian Peterson might end up, or will he just ultimately settle and play for the Vikings in 2017?
I don't see him playing in a uniform other than the Vikings. I think that teams right now pay way too much for running backs as it is.
True.
Because, I mean, you can get a solid running back. Really what you need to be a good running back is a good offensive line. And these teams go after a great established name like AP, and they don't end up playing well because you don't put the line in front of them to create the holes that you need. So I think there are ways to get a great running back in the 6th or 7th round or even undrafted and just put a good line in front of him, and he's going to put up outstanding numbers. I'm not saying that AP is replaceable by any means, because what he's done is tremendous. But I think that the market for running backs is way, way overinflated. So do I see him going anywhere? I really don't know who's going to be willing to overpay for him, but
hopefully nobody.
In my limited knowledge, I just see him going back to Minnesota and finishing up his career with the team that he's been with for ages.
Interesting. No, and I can certainly see that as well, too. I mean, we'll have to see, I guess, what ends up shaking down. March 9th is the opening day for the NFL free agency, so we'll have to see what kind of transpires from there, I guess.
Yeah, and also, Kyle, the NFL Scouting Combine is going on right now. A lot of college names coming up. How much really stock do you buy into the NFL Scouting Combine? Does it matter how much he can bench press or how fast he runs? Does that mean he's going to be a good football player?
To be honest with you, I pay next to no attention to the Scouting Combine.
That's a smart idea.
I watch none of the coverage. In my mind, the Scouting Combine is the exact same as what do they call it this year? Super Bowl opening night on the first night, the media day that they had in Houston.
Yeah.
It's all just an opportunity for the NFL to sell a couple of days of extra advertising. It's a chance,
of course.
and people will watch it. I mean, the thing gets ratings, but honestly, it means nothing to me. When a team drafts a guy, that's when I'll start to pay attention to where he came from, what he's put up. But you know what? At the end of the day, if it helps a team get a better picture of a guy, then great. But for me, it means nothing to me as a fan or as a member of the media.
And I find it funny, too. I mean, we hear all about the antics going on at the draft. The Cleveland Browns are playing card tricks with their guys that they're interviewing. I mean, it just seems kind of ridiculous to test their memory. And I mean, I understand you want to make sure that the player that you get is smart and can remember the hand signals, the play calls, the coverage schemes, all that stuff. But doing card tricks and doing silly things like that I don't really feel like you're going to get an accurate picture of who this person is. I feel like you're going to offend somebody more than you actually are going to want to try to make them want to play for your team.
Well, being in baseball the last 6 years and talking to scouts, they're just trying to do anything they can to get the most complete picture of a player. They want to know how well he stands up to certain mental tests. And it kind of goes back to the movie Moneyball, where they're talking about not drafting a guy because he has an ugly girlfriend, so that means his confidence is low. It's all really nonsense.
Yes.
It's all nonsense, but scouts are just trying to get the best picture they can because they want the most possible information on a guy to make sure they're not making a mistake. There are jobs. There's a lot of money on the line when you're talking about taking a guy, especially in the first couple of rounds. And so they want the most complete picture they can possibly get. So I understand why they go a little bit above and beyond. You and I think it's a little ridiculous that they do these mental tests and the Wonderlic and all that nonsense, but there's a reason for it all, and it's this mental game that they play with draft prospects, and I think there's a place for it. But again, for me as a fan and a media member, it doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Well, as a media member down in Atlanta, I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you what does Atlanta need to do this draft or this offseason in free agency to fill up the very small holes that they have on their team?
Yeah, I think on the defensive end of the ball is definitely where they have to improve the most. I think they could use some upgrades on the defensive line, but the secondary is what got picked apart. And I think that any defense we saw in the Super Bowl, and that was really the first time that I think the nation paid attention as a whole to who the Falcons were as a team. And we saw a great offense early, but at the end of the day, they were on the field for 95 plays or something crazy like that. The defense was. So any defense was going to be gassed at that point, but we saw a bunch this year where the secondary did get picked apart at times. They need a couple of upgrades in corners. They need to re-sign Desmond Trufant. I think that's priority number one for Thomas Dimitroff this offseason. But the draft, I think they're going to focus on young defensive guys in the same way that they did the last couple of years. Vic Beasley obviously grew by leaps and bounds this season leading the NFL in sacks with 15.5. And now getting Trufant back and healthy. He was injured back in week 8 or 9 against the Bucs. It's definitely going to help. I think the defense came along, and just getting a couple of extra pieces to put around those guys will definitely help.
One of our viewers here, Kyle, on Facebook says that he thinks that Matt Ryan, of course, the NFL MVP, is a great quarterback, but doesn't necessarily know if he's an elite quarterback. How do you view him as getting a firsthand experience to see that?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier this afternoon. In terms of the elite conversation, it's such a I think it's kind of a dumb conversation because a couple of years ago we were talking about Joe Flacco, and Tony Romo's name seems to come up with this word too occasionally. Everybody wants to debate about whether he's in that category. But for Matt Ryan, I don't think he's there yet. I think he has the tools, and he's only 31 years old, which in terms of quarterbacks is pretty young still. He's still learning the game, and I think that his best years are ahead of him. Tom Brady has done what he's done, over the course of his entire career, but he's had his heyday in the last 8 years.
Right.
The guy's 39 years old. Matt Ryan is only just reaching that point now at 31. So I think his best years are ahead of him, and it's a matter of just keeping the receivers around him and the targets around him, and that's what made Matt Ryan so great this year. He had so many different targets that he could throw to, and he hit, and I mentioned the stat on the show earlier too, he hit 13 different receivers for a touchdown this season. That's an NFL record.
Unbelievable.
And to me, there's one common denominator, and it was number 2. It was Matty Ice. So in my mind, is he elite? I don't think you can throw him in that category yet just because he made one Super Bowl.
Right.
But he has the tools to get there.
Good stuff, Kyle. We appreciate it, sir. Where can people find you on social media to keep up with everything going on in the sports world?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at HearKyleTait, H-E-A-R, last name T-A-I-T, Here Kyle Tait.
Perfect, Kyle. Enjoy your weekend, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Sounds good.
All right, there goes Kyle Tait, one of our pro football correspondents right here on the Brew Sports Network. Also one of the many hard workers for 92.9 The Fan, or The Game, rather, down in Atlanta, the flagship for the Hawks and the Falcons as well, too. Kyle, I just saw as well off air, being promoted to be their lead guy to cover Atlanta United soccer as well, too.
That's
so
awesome.
New expansion team. Yeah. Did you hear that they've sold 50,000 season tickets?
Really?
For Atlanta United. I know that they're playing inside the Falcons' new stadium, so some people are like, you can't put 50,000 people in a soccer stadium. You only put like 25 or 30. But because you're playing in the Mercedes-Benz Arena or Dome, I forget what they're calling. I know the Saints and the Falcons have Mercedes-Benz, and I forget who's the Dome and who's the Arena. But I think that's incredible, though, as an expansion franchise in the soccer world. Too, people talk about, MLS isn't growing. MLS is blah, blah, blah. 50,000 people
it's
are
for sure growing.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of funny to see that. But congratulations to the city of Atlanta for trying to get behind a team like that. Sometimes expansion franchises really struggle and because the fan support's not there. But Atlanta seems hot and ready to go, to pardon the hot Atlanta, pun basically.
Yeah, but 50,000 season tickets, that is a huge number for any level of professional
It doesn't
sports.
matter the sport, honestly.
Whether expansion or not,
I
or
completely
MLS or NFL, that is a hefty number.
If only 50,000 people showed up to an NFL game, that's still not bad.
Yeah,
Some people would be mad, be like, well, NFL stadiums hold like 65
so
to 80,000.
50,000 people.
Still,
Yeah.
like that's a decent city, basically. Like, come on. Like, I mean, we're here in Milwaukee. We've got 825,000 people or something. But I mean, still, like, you can find decent-sized, thriving cities that only have 50 to 70,000 people. That's a lot of people, like thriving small metropolises, basically. All right, let's go to the NFL draft and the combine a little bit more. I know we briefly talked about it with Kyle there on the phone for a little while, but you look at this scouting combine. Tanner and I talked about it a little bit. Tanner and Jay talked about it earlier as well, too, on their show Pick 6, about Deshaun Watson, about Mitch Trubisky, about just the draft needs as a whole for so many teams and who the clear over one pick is. Is Cleveland going to take another quarterback and ruin another career? There's so many different storylines that you can go with this as well, too, but you alluded to this with Kyle on the air about, do all these tests, all these training things really matter? Who cares if you can bench press, 200-plus pounds 25 times? You're not bench pressing in the middle of a football game. That's not going to win you a football game, Like, do you think the combine needs to get changed?
I think it just needs to not be there. I think
just get rid of it altogether.
Yeah, I think it should just be just watching film as a lot more of value to scouts.
I agree.
Than seeing them run in a straight line for 40 yards with no one in front of them.
But you can win a free island that way, though. If you
yeah, you could. What are you going to do with an island, though?
Yeah, right.
But that was discussed earlier. But to go back to the topic at hand is that it's just they're not playing football.
Right.
They're going to be paid to play football. And so I don't think it matters what they do in the combine. It's just something, as Kyle said, just to show off and
it is
sell
ad time.
They got a huge Under Armour deal. Yeah,
yep, exactly.
They're going to start selling tickets to it.
They they televise everything on the NFL Network as well too. I mean, ESPN's down there, media and the scouts and all that. I mean, just to go back to soccer because that's one of the things that I know that well. I mean, they do a player combine, but what they do is they don't do the drills. They basically play like they take all the players. I forget how many are invited to the combine, but they basically form 4 teams. And they make them play a little round-robin tournament. So you get to see all the players in their natural positions playing on a field. Granted, the chemistry is not that great because a lot of these guys don't play with each other, but you get to see the guys in their native form against other players doing like what you should do on a field. Pass a ball, kick a ball, shoot a goal.
The argument with football, though, is that the injury could happen.
Exactly.
But
that's why people are
counterpoint is you could play 7-on-7 flag football. I know a lot of high school camps do this. That's a whole spring season for some high schools to get their players not only practice for the upcoming high school season, but college exposure so they can get scholarships. And there's plenty of success in that. Well, it'd be kind of silly to see your future NFL stars playing flag football, but it could show off really the useful skills.
Exactly. I mean, that's going to highlight more so the quarterbacks, the receivers, and the defensive backs because obviously you're not going to be tackling. I mean, anybody to an extent can pull a flag, no matter how slow or fast you are. But, you got to see, can the quarterback thread the needle? Can the receiver make a catch in double coverage? Can the defensive back read the quarterback and make the play out on the ball that you need to be successful? Those are all things that are very important and vital at the end of the day to succeeding in the NFL. So, a lot of different things, I guess, that people fuss about it. But, I mean, especially certain sports, like nobody cares what the kicker runs. Nobody cares what the strong safety can bend, the little agility, all that fun stuff. There's so many little things, but like you said, it comes down to money, of course. At the end of the day, everything, of course, always comes down to money, and that's a bit sad at times as well, too, just because of how the nature of the world is nowadays.
Yeah, just how it is.
It is. So
kind of unfortunate, but
it is a little bit. But I mean, you look at the combine though specifically. It is going on. It's not going away. A lot of people are talking about Leonard Fournette today. He ran a 4.5 40. People are saying after he had a terrible vertical jump, which another one. Who cares how high a guy can jump? You know, like some people are born with a great vertical, some people aren't. It's not something usually you can train. Like sure you can do the whole jump with weighted, little weighted anklets and then take them off. Oh, I can jump higher. Well, yeah,
it shows
physics.
That you're athletic, but are you saying there's people in the NFL who might not be athletic because they can't reach a certain point on the vertical jump? Or because they can't dunk a basketball, they're not athletic? I think everyone throughout just starting at college football and up, they're all athletes in some aspect.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right about that. And it's always interesting. I mean, that was my biggest thing as well, too. Not that I had a stellar college career, but I mean, I'm 6 feet, I'm 160 pounds, but I was fast, and I played soccer, and I played football because I was a kicker, and I played forward. But I could kick a ball really far, and I had decent speed, which all helped me at the specific positions I could play. I actually, could catch the ball. I could actually throw the ball as well, but I wasn't built for that. I didn't want to die going across the middle at 165 pounds. A linebacker just, blinks at me and I snap in half basically. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to do that.
That's what kept me from playing football,
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Yep. I mean, that's why, you see the ideal receiver, 6'3", 6'5", whatever, 185, 200 pounds basically. It's like, okay, yeah, you're built here. Even if I was 165 pounds, still solid muscle, I'm still going to get destroyed. Like, I like breathing.
Yeah.
I like walking. Yeah. I'm not going to do that to myself, honestly.
Not eating through a straw, you enjoy.
Exactly. You're absolutely right about that. Couple people talking about stuff on Facebook. Tanner says, boo, bad puns. Get over it, Tanner. He also says a record 40 could win you an island. That's exciting.
I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as a bad pun.
Thank you. See, Tanner, you could learn something. Anyway. He means well. That's all that matters. It's the most backhanded compliment ever. He means well. He has a great personality. All right. Well, one of the other big things we want to talk about that I know is very near and dear to your heart is, of course, March Madness, the bracketology, all of that fun business. And we've seen some new information come out from Joe Lenardi about teams that have suddenly dropped in stock or gone up in stock. I'm going to put the bracket up on the screen right now. If you just kind of want to talk us a little bit through it and just in general talk about some of the surprises that have been going on as well, too.
Yeah, well, as we get into the conference tournament season, not too many surprises yet outside of the Big South Conference. It was the Campbell Fighting Camels beating UNC Asheville. Bulldogs.
The Campbell Fighting Camels?
Fighting Camels, yes. That is their official
Not just camels,
mascot.
the Fighting Camels.
Fighting Camels, yep. That's on.
What if you're like the
official...
Bashful Camels?
Nope.
Is that a whole other
fighting.
school?
Fighting is a lot more
good for them,
aggressive.
I guess. Sure,
yeah.
Absolutely.
But they were, I believe, they were a low seed, 9 or 10 seed, playing the number 1 seed, starting off the tournament, first game. It was a noon start over at Winthrop. And UNC Asheville was favored by 14 points to win that game.
Interesting.
And one of their starters dropped 51 points for Campbell.
Woo!
They beat them 81-79, so 51 out of the 89 points. And Campbell got the upset. So that's going to take a spot away.
I'm glad I started that guy in fantasy.
Yeah. You can't do that in college. That's illegal. Just ask Richmond baseball.
Hey, that's true.
But that's going to take a spot away because
that's true.
In the bracketology, I believe UNC Asheville was on here. Oh, he changed it to Winthrop.
Winthrop going to that 14 seed basically in the East.
In the East bracket. But that's still going to have some implications because UNC Asheville has a chance at an at-large bid. Not a huge chance.
You're right.
If someone gets that spot, takes it away from a bigger name school on the bubble, such as Kansas State, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest is in that conversation as well. But by the way, ACC has 10 teams in this current bracket by Joe Lenardi, which in the bracket right now. But another thing I want to touch on in the West bracket, Wisconsin is listed as a 6th seed. They lost again last night.
Shocker.
Iowa. They are.
How do you lose to the Hawkeyes?
You score less points than the Hawkeyes.
I guess that's usually how it works.
But they're on a quick downward spiral. I think they're still going to make it in. They might go one and done, but not yet on
That could
a
be one of those
bubble.
upsets. I mean, you look at it right now. I mean, they're slated to maybe play Cal or play Wake Forest,
Yeah,
who would be an
more
11
playing
seed.
games.
And we see that 11 seed, 6 seed battle sometimes end up resulting in those bigger upsets as well too. So certainly a possibility. Eric on Facebook says hi as well too. Hi Eric, thanks for watching, appreciate it. But continue though with that.
The Wisconsin surprise isn't as big as Xavier being on the last 4 in on Joe Lunardi's bracket here. Xavier started out as one of the national champion contenders at the beginning of the year. They had a few injuries. Blewett was out for a little bit, and they just haven't gotten their feel back. They have lost quite a bit. They lost to Marquette 2 nights ago by double digits, and it's just not looking. If they keep losing and they go one and done in the Big East tournament, they're not even going to be in the NCAA tournament. Starting out as a national title contender and not even making the field of 68 is tough to swallow.
So hypothetically, I'm just going to ask this question: if this is the bracket right now, I know that it's going to change a lot, of course, in the next couple of days. But if you were looking at this bracket, I know it's hard to make a big prediction, but if you had to semi-guesstimate a possible Final Four team from each category, I mean, you look at the Midwest, you've got Kansas, Purdue has been kind of surprising, Virginia, Marquette is supposedly that dark horse, Seton Hall, Louisville, those guys are all, pretty darn good as whole too. But who would be your potential winner out of the Midwest?
Out of you took the hardest one out of all of them. I don't think Kansas, with the lack of size, they got a great front court.
True.
Frank Mason probably going to be Naismith Player of the Year winner here. But I just don't think they can make it all the way to the Final Four. They'll make it to Sweet 16 and get bounced there to who I think is the best team out of the Midwest bracket, UCLA. Lonzo Ball over there and his dad, of course.
Love the Ball family. Everybody does.
UCLA is a very good basketball team. They
Right.
just beat Arizona over the weekend.
True.
At Arizona in Tucson. Very good team coming out of Los Angeles. UCLA, I think, is going to make the Final Four.
Interesting. All right, briefly through the other categories. The East, I mean, of course, you got some
Florida.
big teams as well, too. Florida's going to be your Final Four team?
Villanova's not good enough. Saw them in person here against Marquette.
True.
Stormed the court, the whole 9 yards. They just got some weaknesses there.
Interesting.
Florida, I think they're going to be a surprise team. Not too many people are buying into
Hey,
them.
I'm from Florida. Represent the Gator Nation, I guess. Looking at the West and the South really fast, Gonzaga, are they overhyped?
Oh, for sure. Big time. They play in the West Coast Conference. They just lost to BYU.
True.
I don't think they're going to pull it out over there.
So what do you think, Butler or Wichita State? They're always a contender.
I think, honestly, Wichita State might get to the Elite Eight, but then lose to... This is a really tough one coming out of the West, but I think Oregon.
Interesting.
I think Oregon's overrated. They'll make it. They got the West bracket as it sets up here with Joe Lunardi is very up in the air. There's no clear-cut winner, really clear-cut strengths out of anyone.
That's the big thing that I'm kind of seeing out of this entire West bracket. That this would be a fun group of teams to watch. Honestly, I think no matter which way you look at it, teams are going to be flying and dropping all over the place. And I think most of the time, no matter who comes out of the West, people are going to be fairly satisfied with that team.
Big time.
All right, last one here. The South, you got North Carolina, of course, always the projected 1 seed. Providence has made some noise. Arizona, Syracuse, Kentucky. Creighton is always kind of a funny little animal to play with.
We'll see them tomorrow here in Milwaukee. They're
That's
playing
right, we
Marquette,
will, yep.
Senior Day. But I think it's going to be Arizona, North Carolina in the Elite Eight, the regional championship there. North Carolina's going to take it. As you can see, there's some weaknesses Arizona has. They do have the size, but are they going to show up? They didn't show up against UCLA.
That is always the big thing.
North Carolina, I think, is just very versatile. They got the size, they got the scores. North Carolina might be my national title winner as of right now.
Number 1 seed. Very often, very rarely, I should say, it is a clear number 1 seed.
I like Tar Heels a lot. Well, big test tomorrow against Duke. I don't know if you've watched ESPN, you've seen at least 5 of the Duke UNC commercials.
Ridiculous.
If you just watch for a 30-minute span. But it'll be a test for them. But I think North Carolina is It's hard to win that series twice in the same year. I don't think Duke can do it, and North Carolina is going to have some big momentum going into the tournament.
Eric on Facebook asks, what's your opinion on Marquette?
I think they just barely get in. They're in.
Okay. They're an 11 seed supposedly now.
They'll be a lock if they beat Creighton tomorrow.
Okay.
It'll be still difficult to beat Creighton tomorrow. Even if they lose, they still have a chance. At least win your first game in the Big East tournament. You win 2 while losing to Creighton tomorrow, and they're in.
Interesting.
They control their own destiny.
There you go. One of those situations. James also says Kansas State and Vanderbilt he believes will be out quickly.
I'm a Kansas State guy, so
I know you are.
It's
That's
hard
why when you
to
brought it
pick
up, I
against
was like,
Kansas
I gotta ask.
I'm even surprised to see Kansas State in the first 4 out. I think they shouldn't even be in the consideration right now. They got a lot of leadership problems. They lost by 30 to the conference dweller in Oklahoma. Of course, it was on the road, but still,
of course.
Bottom of the conference, you lose by 30. That is just not a good look.
True.
Bruce Weber might be out of there at the end of the year, but Vanderbilt, I think they do get in. I think Xavier's not going to make it in. USC and Wake Forest, I don't think are going to make it in either. That leaves room for Vanderbilt. Bryce Drew's done a great job as a coach in his first year coming from Valpo. Really getting this Vanderbilt team in there. If Vandy doesn't get in this year, for sure next year. He is a fantastic coach, knows how to do it, knows how to get the right recruits and use the guys on the floor in a great way to beat Vanderbilt in the discussion of being in the tournament in his first year is already just a huge improvement from what they were.
True. No, you're absolutely right about that. All right. Well, one of the final things here before we wrap things up, of course, it is happy hour. It is Friday. People like to be able to have a good time. They like to enjoy the weekend. And sometimes people get so excited they decide to jump over opposing offensive lines and try to block kicks. Wait, that's not it. No. If you haven't heard, the NCAA has said that the NCAA Rules Committee said Friday that they want to make it illegal to hurdle linemen to block a kick and expand what constitutes a horse collar tackle as well, too. Those are the two big things that the NCAA is talking about. The horse collar, I feel like, is such a hard thing for people to fully judge because you see guys getting ripped around all over the place, and it's so hard to fully judge what constitutes a horse tackle basically nowadays. But this whole jumping over the line to block the kick, as a former kicker, I never had anybody jump over the line. My outside blockers were always terrible, so my kicks always got blocked if they did from the outsides because the outside, the wingers were terrible, unfortunately. But I don't hold that against Zach or Will or anybody else that once blocked for me. Anyway. Sorry, guys. But what do you make of something like this? We see this a lot in the NFL now. A lot of guys, Earl Thomas flying over the top of the line to block the crucial game, potentially tying or winning field goal. I mean, it seems a little ridiculous in the NFL, but college as well? Is this just a safety issue?
Yeah, it's for sure a safety issue. There's a lot of danger of jumping over people at any point of a football game.
True.
If you have the ball, if you don't have the ball. If the long snapper were to all of a sudden stand up and upend the guy trying to jump over him, he's probably going to fall in an awkward way. Might be a shoulder issue. It's just dangerous all around. Even if he can't jump that high and he knees the long snapper right in the helmet, that's still blunt force to the head.
Possible concussions, so many different repercussions.
And then he's got a full head of steam going right towards the kicker and the holder, rather from going on the outside as
and what do you
blocked.
do? Do you just straight up tackle the holder if you actually clear the line and you time it? Like, what do you do? Do you just try to block the kick? Do you hit the kicker?
Yeah, you just try and go up as high as you can, but the law of inertia, he's still moving forward. It's going to be hard for him to stop not to get to the kicker or holder.
Who knew that you could get a science lesson as well, too, on Happy Hour today? Inertia. I love it. David says, shout out to Baxter's former offensive lineman. Let us know what it's like being thrown under a bus. Listen, everybody got thrown under the bus on my high school teams, okay? We were pretty bad my junior year of high school. Aaron says that's what happened in the Super Bowl. Very fun to watch, guys jumping over.
I don't like it, to be honest.
I'm not a big fan of it either, honestly. Hashtag protect the kickers. Hashtag holders are people, too, I guess. All right, last thing to talk about before we get out of here. A very big debate swirling around the Brew Sports Network. Ryan, is a taco a burrito, or is it a sandwich, or is it a taco within a taco? What is a taco to you, Ryan?
Taco is definitely not a burrito. A burrito is something wrapped up.
Is a burrito a taco? Is it a folded?
No, a burrito is just a type of wrap. I think individual on their own. I got a counter question. Is a hot dog a sandwich? There's a right and the wrong answer to
Is there?
this.
Yeah,
there
is
is,
there?
for sure.
Is there your opinion, and is there the world, or what?
It's my
I don't think
opinion.
it's.
It is a sandwich. Why
I
is
think
it not
it
a
is.
sandwich?
I think it
yeah,
is a sandwich. Yeah,
There's so
I
many
would agree
people
with
that do not believe it's a sandwich. They think, because you don't call it a hot dog sandwich, it doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
if you
still a
ask for
sandwich.
a piece, I mean, it's a piece of meat on a piece of bread. Essentially, a bun is a piece of bread you cut in half.
The other argument is they say, it's only one piece of bread. But,
So is a hamburger. You with the bun, you
Well,
cut
that's-
the bun in half.
yeah, but even at Subway, where it just splits open, it's still one piece of bread.
True.
And that is a sandwich.
I completely agree with you on
There we
that
go.
one. I don't know. All right. Well, we have had a great show today. Special thanks to Kyle Tait for joining us on the program from 92.9 The Game down in Atlanta. Ryan, appreciate you sitting in as well for
Yeah,
Tiki
no
Griesbach.
problem.
We hope to have you back on the program again, too, if it works out at some point. If not, when can people see you here on the Brew Sports Network?
Oh, you can see the college road trip with me and Barry on Wednesday nights, 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time. Talk about anything and everything college sports.
Do you have any idea what you guys are talking about this upcoming show yet? Any teasers? Any
Yeah, we're
previews for
talking
us?
mid-major basketball.
Okay.
Going all the way from the Missouri Valley Conference to the Mid-Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAC with 2 A's.
MAC.
Yeah. Talking
the MAC.
Small college basketball there.
Okay.
Seeing, because they're going to make the tournament as well. Some teams can make some noise, disrupt the bracketology a
True.
little bit to see what goes on there. Talk some college hockey, too.
Ooh, Frozen
Wisconsin
Four?
women's hockey is
Oh, really?
the
Okay, wow.
top team in the country
True.
right now.
They're always at a very good program.
They are a national title contender. We'll talk a little Badger hockey there. See the men's side too. Frozen 4 you mentioned as
course.
well. And
Sounds like some fun stuff.
Yeah, if any other college sports news comes up too, we'll be
You'll
sure
talk
to
about
address it.
Fantastic. Well, he
Yeah.
is Ryan Thies. I am Baxter Colburn. We appreciate you joining us today on Happy Hour. Stay tuned. Our final programming of the week is coming up in just a little bit. The debut of Double Dribble, our basketball show, pro basketball. It'll be Jimmy Carlton and Mitch Vomhoff live right here. So stay tuned as we'll have that program coming up for you next. We'll see you guys next time on Happy Hour. We'll see you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next time on Brew Sports.